This amendment relates to, I'll find the right page here, relates to the TeenScreen controversy. Here we go. Taking your pardon, Madam Chair. Instead of using language with regard to TeenScreen, because I don't think it's appropriate to necessarily block out any one form of screening members, as you know, psychiatry and psychology are unlike any other branches of health and medicine. They do not adhere to the same rigorous objective standards for diagnosing, and there is no single biological test for any psychiatric disorder. There's poor agreement among mental health professionals, not only for diagnosing and ways to screen, if there's anything to, for the ways to screen, if there's anything to focus upon, but there's also poor agreement about the cause for all these disorders that are being proliferated, I believe, by this subjective nature of screening. And this is something I don't believe should be going on at all without the parents being present. This amendment excludes for suicide prevention tools any psychiatric screening instruments, and at the bottom of that provision it also clarifies that and addresses the issue of violence in general. In accord with the federal early warning timely response guidelines, there's a provision there that says all children have likes and dislikes, however, an intense prejudice towards others based on racial, ethnic, religious, language, gender, sexual orientation, ability, and physical appearance, when coupled with other factors, may lead to violent assaults. If you look at the language on line 8, we have solely based on attitudes, values, and beliefs. That is language intended to be in accord with the early warning timely response, the federal program that highlights when coupled with other factors. So that's the purpose of the language there. And given the volume of emails that I've received on this issue, more than any other issue in this session, and the fact that I've not received any support, and I've had a number of psychiatric and psychiatric professionals and psychologists contact me with their concerns about this program, I think it's very important that we rule out any of these kinds of tools. There's no documentation of any reduction in suicides because of these programs, at least in the last report that I've seen. So I would ask for a roll call vote and ask for your support.
Representative Olson has requested a roll call. There will be a roll call. Representative Olson, we've had 2 hearings on this. I don't think you were here when we had the hearing on this in the K-12 committee, and so I don't want to replow all this turf because many of the misinformation facts that you just stated were refuted by testifiers in the committee. We had this very same hearing again this morning in Health and Human Services. I was given 5 minutes to present House File 196, which is not just the section under question, but also the entire bill. And actually it expanded into an hour and a half or plus hearing and discussing many things. But again, we discussed the screening tool. So it's had a lot of airing here in the legislature. I've actually had more hearings, by the way, on the High School League, Representative Hillstrom's bill, than I did on this one. But I do think that the protesters of the screening for mental health in teenagers have not been sending all their information to me, because I could refute it with accurate information, and so often they don't send it to me. I didn't get the video, for instance, that everyone else got. But having said that, I don't want to re-discuss this. I think most of us were here for the hearing, even if they're not on Willie or Representative Dominguez's subcommittee. They were here for the hearing, but you did, just present it, and appreciate that. And if anyone has any short discussion, we could take that. But we're mainly taking amendments with known issues that are on the table. We're not trying to have another hearing on certain topics right here at this time. And I will also say that we have session at 6, and it is my intention to go up until 2 minutes to 6. If need be, to get in all these amendments, because this bill needs to be voted on today. Anybody, I'm not going to call on the same person twice until other people have things to say. Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I do think we need to pay special attention to this kind of tool that may be used. Kenosha, Wisconsin, in February backed out of this program. So I think we want to pay attention to what's happening. And I found that, Madam Chair, in my Google search also. I did not get that information from any outside group.
Okay, any other discussion? Representative Olson, a closing comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You referenced that my statements were not fact-based. I'll just briefly go through them. The early warning timely response, that's a documented fact and referenced in my amendment as solely based on attitudes, values, and beliefs. We're just following the pattern or the strategy of the early warning timely response there. I think it's a well-established fact that these tests are very subjective. There is no single biological test. I stated that. I think that is a fact. The only thing I think that could be refuted is that my data here shows in 2004, at that point there was no peer-reviewed data to suggest that TeenScreen program lowers suicide. Up to 2004, there was no peer-reviewed data. But the fact of the matter is this is so subjective. These tests are so subjective. I think it's very dangerous to be using them in the way that they're being used, and therefore I would urge members to support my motion. In fact, I see the test here. And Madam Chair, I appreciate your concern that I wasn't here. I'm not trying to rehash everything that was hashed out on the day that I wasn't able to be here. I've looked at this quite extensively, and I've read through some of these tests myself, and they are extremely subjective. And the last thing I'll leave you with is just look around us and see how these different diagnoses are being proliferated, how they're growing and getting worse, and what it's doing to special education.
Thank you, Representative Olson. There are very few diagnoses that doctors make with a single test for any illness, and certainly any kind of screening would not be a test that would be making a diagnosis. So those are just a couple things I wanted to mention.
Madam Chair?
Representative Olson, if you could take like 30 seconds, because otherwise I don't want to go on about this anymore. We don't have time, and I think members know this issue.
I just thought it's interesting to know how we'd all fare. Have you often felt sad or depressed here in the legislature?
Okay, Representative Olson, we're not going to take time to go through that. The clerk will call the roll, but yes to that one.